being added to the webinar, so let's get started. Once again, welcome to this webinar about the costs and benefits of going plastic waste free. My name is Saskia Pepping. This is me. For the ones who don't know me, I'm the sector manager tourism for an organization which is called MVO Nederland. MVO stands for CSR. And before we get started, I would like to ask you the following. Please turn off your cameras. That might make the connection very slow. Mute yourself at all times, please. Check whether the sound of your laptop or computer is switched on. Make sure your chat box is visible on your screen so you can ask your questions, and your questions will be answered at the end of the presentation. This webinar is recorded. So you know, we can share it afterwards as well. About the program for the coming hour is I will start with telling a little bit more about MVO Nederland and the activities we do on plastics and tourism. But the floor today is mainly for Willemijn Peters from Serious Business. She will tell us more about the Plastic Waste-Free Island project and the tips and tricks she has to reduce plastic and also save costs. So that's an interesting one. After Willemijn, her presentation, we've got time for questions. But during Willemijn's presentation, you can post your questions in the chat. So feel free at any time to post your questions there. We definitely aim to round up at 3 o'clock, Dutch time. Don't know in which time zone you are, but we hope not to take more than 1 hour. So I'd like to tell you a little bit more about the organization I work for, which is called MVO Nederland. We are the movement for entrepreneurs into the new economy. We are a business network of 2,000 companies, and we all share the ambition to become more sustainable. We want to work towards this new economy, and this new economy for us is climate neutral, inclusive, circular, and is built around fair supply chains. We work in all different types of sectors. I am our sector manager, sector tourism, the most beautiful sector there is, of course. And what we try to do, we try to establish projects and coalitions around sustainability issues. Plastic waste is one of them. And about a year ago, we launched the International Tourism Plastic Pledge, which has been signed by over 200 companies right now. And within this Tourism Plastic Pledge, we work together to exchange knowledge and to help each other in the reduction of plastics. Well, we launched a year ago, and that was before the crisis, the COVID-19 crisis started, and we had great ambitions in reducing our plastics. Well, then in March, the crisis hit, and I don't have to explain you that our sector is hit very, very hard. So we were also struggling in how can we support the sector in these very difficult times in still reducing plastics. We can definitely imagine you have different priorities at this particular time, but we try to see in what way we could get a message across and get good ideas across how you can still reduce plastic in times. Therefore, we organized several webinars. We did one in July with Travel Without Plastics, and today we have this one with Serious Business. And we hope that, well, still we can take small steps in reducing plastics. Well, you probably all know about the Global Tourism Plastic, the International Tourism Plastic Pledge. I also would like to tell you about another initiative, the Global Tourism Plastics Initiative, which has been launched by the UN World Tourist Organization. We are more or less the same initiatives. We work closely together, and we are also part of their advisory group. So we're not trying to do, we don't try to reinvent the wheel within the International Tourism Plastic Pledge or the Global Tourism Plastics Initiative. I invite you to have a look at the initiative, and if you want, definitely become one of their signatories. I think they have a lot of useful tools and tricks as well. So it's worth having a look at their websites. Well, as we know, COVID, you probably all recognize this now by COVID. We see this quite often, has really changed our world. Before COVID, we were very concerned about all these plastics, and we found a lot of plastic straws on our beaches. It takes about 200 years for a straw to decompose, but nowadays we find the masks in beaches and in our oceans, and it takes up to 450 years for a mask to decompose. So we're not really moving into the right direction. So hopefully we can bring some inspiration in a webinar like this. So I am going to switch some screens because I would like to invite you to go to a Mentimeter. I'm going to share the right screen with you, which is this one. Can you see my screen? I'm just checking with my colleague Ying. Can you see it, Ying?
Yes, we can see it.
Excellent. Can I invite you all to go to www.menti.com and use the code which you can see on your screen? Because we are very curious how your organization is doing in these times of the COVID crisis. And I would like to ask you if you managed to go to Mentimeter and you see this. Yes, I see something happening there. We are wondering what this crisis means for you in your ambition to reduce plastics. Did your ambition stay the same? Does it get even more priority, or did your priority, does it have less priority because of all the other concerns you have? I'll just give you all a minute to respond to this this question. Well, I think we can draw a conclusion here, which is a good one, where I'm very happy to see that the majority of our participants in this webinar, their ambition stayed the same, or it got even more priority. That is great to hear. That's what I always like to think that really happens as well in these times, but it's very happy to see that it's really also the case in for you. And of course, for some companies, it might mean that it gets less priority because of many of the concerns you might have. We have a second question. Which, if you, within the ambitions you have in the reduction of plastics, which plastic items have your focus to reduce? Is it bottles, cutlery, straws and stirrers, toiletry amenities, food packaging, food containers, or other, something we haven't named here? I'll give you all a minute to respond to this question. Well, excellent. So quite clear one here as well. We see that there's a lot of focus on bottles. Probably water bottles, can be, of course, also other beverage bottles, and cutlery, straws and stirrers. It's very nice to have a bit of an indication where your focus is. So thank you very much for responding to this, these questions. Well, I'd like to switch again to another of my screens, because I would very much like to introduce you to our speaker of today, which is Willemijn Peters. Willemijn is CEO and founder of Serious Business, and we are very happy she wants to take the time today to tell us more about the Plastic Waste-Free Island project in which she is involved, and in which the tourism sector is an important sector they are working with. And what I feel is that it's quite a struggle in these times to reduce plastics. And when I spoke to Willemijn, she's got also tricks how to reduce plastics and reduce costs. And I can imagine reducing costs in these times where our sector is being hit very hard is always a good trigger to continue with reducing plastics. So Willemijn, I would like to give the floor to you. So we can switch screens. So I see yours, so that's good.
Okay, let me see.
Yeah.
Sorry, struggling a bit.
Don't
Should be
worry.
okay. Hope you can see this.
No, we don't see. I was just seeing it. I think
What
you have to
about now?
show it again.
You cannot see it now?
No.
Okay. Should be able to see it now.
Yes, there it is. Yeah.
Okay.
And just before you begin, Willemijn, just another note for me, guys. Don't forget to post your questions in the chat. So you can ask them anytime, and afterwards we can answer them. So don't be shy and just post any question you like in the chat. Okay, Willemijn, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Saskia. Good afternoon, everyone, or good evening, depending on where you are situated. Indeed, I'm going to talk to you about the costs and benefits of going plastic waste-free, especially in the tourism sector. A little bit about me and Serious Business. As a company, we help to make the difference in the world of plastics, really by preventing plastic waste. Because the people and me in the team, we share a passion for our ocean, and we want to make sure that our mission is zero plastics into our ocean. And we do this by working together with the major producers and users of plastic. So that also means you, like if you are using a lot of plastics, I think together we can change the system. And we're always keen on helping them to do that in a profitable way, so it doesn't just cost money. We help you typically to rethink the way you use plastic, redesign it, and then rebrand it. We're working in 3 major sectors that are packaging, furniture, and consumer electronics. Yeah, you see crossovers with the tourism industry directly. So on plastic waste-free islands, which I think for us has the most overlap with tour operators, destination managers, hotel owners, and anyone else active in the tourism industry. I'd like to show you a little bit about our plastic waste-free islands we're working on. It's a joint project. It's a project from IUCN funded by NORAD, a Norwegian aid agency. And it's really working together with players from tourism, fishing, and waste management to eliminate plastic pollution from islands, really about preventing it. And maybe I don't have to highlight it, but because it was mentioned in webinars before, and I think it's the reason why you are all involved in the International Plastic Tourism Plastic Pledge. The why, the big why, is really about the plastic is such a big issue. It's only increasing, the amount of plastic consumption is only increasing. Together with that, also the plastic pollution. There's an increasing amount of plastic along island shorelines specifically, but also on other shorelines. In islands specifically, which are a big part of the destination of a lot of tourism players, there's a bad waste, well, lacking infrastructure in waste management, to say correctly. So a lot of plastic goes uncollected. At the same time, we of course want to improve human and wildlife health. And we want to make sure that the economies that are present in the islands that will be future-proof. So it's not just letting in a lot of tourists and then let them pollute the island, and then in 20 years' time, there's nothing left to enjoy. Really want to make sure that we can preserve both the economies and the marine ecosystem, which also presents a big value. So not just monetary, but of course, obviously also for our own well-being. About the why, I want to tell you a bit about the what. And here's where my experiment starts to kick in, because now I have to switch screens, because I'd like to show you a short video of, let me see if I can do this. There you go. Hopefully this works and you can see this. Saskia, can you confirm?
Yes, it works.
Okay, good, because I cannot see. I'll show you the video now. great. So that was a short video on the Plastic Waste-Free Islands project. We are running this with 6 islands, like you could see. But of course, obviously, what we're learning on those islands, we can also, we're also, getting good insights for other islands as well, like other tourism players that are working on different islands. So it's not just about these 6 islands, it's really also about creating the blueprint, like it said in the video, for other islands and other holiday destinations to prevent plastic waste, actually. And like seen in the Mentimeter as well, like what you filled in, a lot of challenges in bottles, and that's something that's totally recognizable. So I think if we look into how can you then prevent plastic waste, which is what this webinar is all about, we have developed specifically for those islands, but those will be shared later anyway to a broader audience. We've developed specific toolkits for plastic waste-free tourism to really encourage hygiene and safety in tourism without the need for single-use plastics. And this will prevent a lot of plastic waste. So we have typically done a toolkit for different players and very specifically. And in this webinar, I've combined a few of the toolkits because, I've seen in the registration, there were hotel owners, tour operators, destination managers, even a cruise liner. So it's really a broad audience. And I want to highlight something that will at least benefit every one of you. So I'm focusing on the low-cost smart investments. How can you offer convenience and safety for your customers with less plastic waste cost, less CO2 emissions, and in the end, of course, happy customers. So this is really, I hope this toolkit will help. We have got really enthusiastic responses so far, but I hope this will also help you. Like I said, we are working, I highlighted some of the examples from 4 different toolkits, and it's also for their suppliers. So not just if you're a tour operator, but also if you're supplying to a hotel or a tour operator or to a cruise line. I think this toolkit will come in really handy. So first takeaway that we found is that you cannot do this alone. This might be a bit of an open door, but really teaming up is key. You cannot find a new way of going out about plastics, doing it the same way always done. So you need to build partnerships also in order to make it profitable. So just replacing one material by the other will not work if you don't work together with your suppliers or with the customers. So it's all about building partnerships, and don't forget to make it fun and interactive as well, because it's not just about sustainability. I think sustainability has a lot of potential to improve the customer journey and to get more of an interaction with your customers going. We also think that as a tourist player and a player involved in the tourism industry, if you have a lot of customers visiting one island, I think as a partner you should be willing to help set up centralized solutions together with others, and those can only work in conjunction with each other. So it's really about that collaboration. So we'll move into the drinks first, right? Because people always like the drinks. If you're a tour operator, you always, typically people you either in a bus, if you arrive on a port, either it's on a cruise line or on an airport. And we'll try what we've seen is that we want to try to encourage to not give out single-use plastic bottles for water, and really encourage the use of reusable bottles and promote to bring your own. And there's also a possibility to have on a map an indication of where customers can go to get one, and that will also give you an angle to collaborate with certain outlets on the island and to make a specific deal going there. Because of course you could also buy a stock of your own reusable bottles, and that you brand it in a certain way that will also guarantee some kind of customer loyalty, or at least PR material for yourself. It's good to then invest in a water filter, because this will help you saving cost in the long run, because tap water is significantly cheaper than bottled water, obviously. I will show you the cost and benefits later. Every time we have a topic, we will share a slide on cost and benefits so you can see. But this is actually a no-brainer. I mean, tap water is much cheaper. In certain regions, the water from the tap, I've also experienced by myself, is a very different flavor. Yeah, sometimes you need a bit of treatment before you can actually drink it from the tap. But even then, the costs and benefits are still much more profitable than just having bottled water. So moving into the food, serve lunch in reusable containers or on plates. So if you're on a tour, a lot of people get single-use plastic containers, and it's just a lot of waste at the end. Whereas investing in a stock of reusables will help you to save money in the long term. And again, you can brand it, of course, with your own logo, and this really provides an opportunity to advertise. So it's really something that will it's really about getting that connection with your customers again. Avoid giving out single-use plastic cutlery, straws, and bags. Please don't hand out individually wrapped items because these typically get lost and are littered. There's perfectly good solutions for that. It's obviously, if you're in a location like a cruise or a hotel, it's easier even. Just don't wrap snacks or anything. Have homemade snacks. That's a much better alternative. People appreciate it more. A downside of all this packaging is also that if you put it in the rooms, it needs to be cleaned, or sometimes even gets thrown away after every visit. So try to avoid this. I think the previous webinar with Travel Without Plastics also spoke about some of these options, and we're trying to monetize them. So they also mentioned the offer the a la carte option instead of the buffet, because it will really lead to less food waste. You can also let the staff serve food from the buffet, and then it will also lead to less food waste. And also it's going to be needing less of hygiene materials. So if you look at the beverages at the location, if you're in a hotel, for instance, filtered water, tap water is much easier. You can also have your own branded reusable bottles, just like the tour operators, or you can even make that combination maybe. At least don't you offer single-use plastic water bottles, because it's really unnecessary, and you will save a lot of money if you don't. If you look at the plastic cups or straws, only you offer reusables, or offer alternatives to single-use plastic. So there's good solutions for straws as well. That would be straw, for instance. I hear a bit of noise on the... Yeah, now it's gone. Thank you. Okay, about coffee and tea, you can offer those complimentary at the reception instead of having the single-use sachets in the rooms, which will lead to a lot of plastic waste. And this will also be really recognized by customer research that has been done, that this is really recognized as a premium service. So apart from saving costs, it's also seen as a great benefit by customers. Okay, so now on every topic, so the red one is the cost of single-use plastic bottles in this case, and the green one is the cost of reusable bottles. So this means that you can see that maybe the reusable bottles are a bit more expensive in the beginning, but after a few months, because these are months, already after the second month, there's a break-even point, and this is only when you take into account 50 bottles of water per day. So it's really about how you can, you can see that there's a clear advantage in not using single-use plastic bottles. The same goes for straws, but even more extreme. Plastic straws are cheap, but if you have reusable straws, you just have a one-off, and that's it. Especially if you talk about in half a year, so you really save a lot of costs. If you look at packed meals per day, it is a bit longer. After 3 months, you will have a break-even point, but even just cleaning the containers is much cheaper than just getting a new ones. Maybe a no-brainer, but it's really much cheaper. Just wash it and get the logistics back than having to do the whole effort again. You can see US dollars with these numbers, and you can also see how much plastic waste is avoided and how many kilograms of CO2 are being avoided. So this is a big reduction here in food and beverages. So of course, there's more topics. I mean, you mentioned bottles. It doesn't need to be beverage bottles, of course. There's usually a lot of smaller bottles in the bathroom and personal care department. This is specifically true for cruise lines and hotels, of course. An easy one is to use dispensers. I'm pretty sure that's not a new topic, but I just wanted to highlight some of the conveniences, like some of the benefits. So it's more convenient actually to clean than the small bottles. It's a lot less hassle. You can choose because some look really basic, but some look really luxurious. So it's really depending on what you want and what the kind of look you want to have from your from your premises. You can encourage guests to travel with their own toiletries. That could also be a way to go. So that's on the shampoo and conditioners disinfection department. Looking at toothpaste, there are perfectly good examples out there from tablets that don't use like the miniature toothpaste ones, but you just use a tablet and you add water and that's it. You rinse it with your toothbrush in your mouth and that works really well. And instead of using a lot more toilet paper, more and more people appreciate the use of, they call them bum guns. So rinse with water after your toilet use instead of using toilet paper. And then looking again at the cost benefit analysis, you can again see the red lines are for the more conservative, like the conventional way, having at least for the soap and shampoos, the miniature ones, and the greens are for dispensing units, at least in the left-hand side. So indeed, already after the third month, again, break-even point, you're saving yourself $280 per half year for an average hotel size, and saving more than half, like 66% on plastic waste, and again, quite some CO2 reductions there. If you use a bidet instead of a toilet paper, it's a really extreme, but that's not just the plastic because it's mostly paper, but we wanted to highlight it anyway because you can't really close your eyes for what's happening in the paper industry either. So we wanted to highlight that too. And looking at the dental tabs, what people typically think is this is a really expensive option. If you compare it to the miniature toothpaste tubes, it's not such an expensive option at all. Less handle, and it's just saving a lot of waste as well. Okay, housekeeping. This is also true for the hotels. Bear with me, tour operators and destination managers. We'll have more for you, but just a bit more for the cruise lines and hotels. You can use concentrates. The use of concentrates is more and more common. So even if you talk to your suppliers, more and more will be able to offer you good alternatives. Alternatively, you can also purchase concentrates more and more in retailers that have a good pricing, and combine these with reusable bottles and spray cans, and that can be reused. That's also a really good option. Obviously, maximum one garbage liner per room. That will save you a lot of garbage liners. Provide reusable laundry bags instead of single-use plastic ones, because typically, you can just wash the laundry bags together with the laundry. And give guests the option to skip or reduce cleaning services altogether. I think more and more are doing this already, also in line with the COVID regulations, but this will also save a lot of materials. Looking at housekeeping, then the costs and benefits again. It's really about the laundry bags. You can save yourself a lot of money. The cost of single use is much higher, and it's really about getting that. It's just a simple switch, getting in the right laundry bags instead of the plastic ones. I see in the cost of single use for detergent, you see that the cost of its cost of single use is much higher than the cost of reusables. You can already, detergent is not a high, it's used a lot, but the costs are not so high of the bottles. So the savings are a bit less than, for instance, for other, like the shampoo bottles. So on average, you would save $38 per half a year, but still switching, that's a good sign. because you would save at least 70% of your plastic waste. And now looking at reduced towels, yeah, that was hard to put a number to. So we made estimates, and on average, you would save half the price and half of the waste. So that's an average we took. I hope I'm not going too quickly, but moving into furniture now, by refurbished furniture or furniture from locally recycled plastics. So we see that more and more outlets are having having to replace some of their furniture, or they want to convert plastic waste found into something useful that's for them, applicable for them as well. So we have seen that there's a lot of potential there in furniture to convert plastic waste into high-end. What we're seeing on those 6 islands, and I'm sure that will be applicable to others as well. It's really beneficial to use carpet tiles and not big and long carpets, because it's really easy to replace carpet tiles when necessary. And you even have carpet tiles from recycled material, for instance, from fishing nets. So that would really tell the story to your customers as well. The same goes for mattresses. If you have an option to replace individual parts, you don't have to replace the entire mattress, and this will save you a lot of money. On the office or reception part or crew area, there's easy low-hanging fruit you can do. Just really do almost everything you can on the computer or work online. I use pencils instead of pen, so really move away from single-use plastic. Use paper binders instead of plastic, and avoid free giveaways that are just really not really adding any value. But just offer, if you want to offer a giveaway, just offer sustainable ones. Some of the tour operators and destination managers offer also wristbands and key cards. Have a good look at woven wristbands or key cards from recycled plastics. You can even make them waste, use apps, so then go digital again. If you would have a key card from plastic waste, this is really a good customer storytelling, because you can say the future is in your hands, because you're actually helping to prevent more plastic leakage by converting it back into key cards. Okay, looking at the costs and benefits, if you look at the left-hand side, we have the mattresses there. You can see the red one that makes big, after the 3rd year, you typically have to replace your mattresses, some even before, some later. It really depends on the amount of tourists that come through. But the cost of a new mattress obviously is pretty high. And then if you only have to replace parts, you can see the curve is much less steep, and the total costs are also lower. So you can save 50% of plastic waste, and this will be on average $50 per year. In the outdoor furniture, will have more or less the same expenditure, although we expect that if you make it from recycled plastic, you will typically not have the low-end China-made furniture that really easily breaks. But even if we take into account it would be the same kind of quality, the cost of recycled would be lower, especially if you can make it on the island itself, because it doesn't need any transport costs. So we really see a big increase there in avoided plastic waste, because you can convert the plastic waste back into furniture again. So 80% reduction. And on average, you would save $10 a year. But then we haven't even talked about like the story you can tell with your furniture to your customers. So we think this would really ring well with the public opinion that is really increasingly concerned about plastic waste. The key cards also have a positive business case. Maybe the cost of a recycled card will be a bit lower. That's what we see typically, but it will be cheaper in the end, because it's not, you don't have to replace it that often, and it's much more sturdy than a cheap one. On beach supplies, increasingly tourists are buying buckets or other beach supplies for their kids or for themselves on the beach, and then they don't take it back home. So there's a lot of supply there. It would totally make sense to set up a beach supplies sharing platform. That's a word mouth, like a word full, but it means that you can just have at the reception of a hotel, some beach supplies that people either rent or you scan their wristband and then bring it back at the end of the day. The same would go for inflatables or umbrellas. This is something you can really combine easily. More and more cigarette butts are into the picture that people are not allowed to smoke on beaches anymore. If it's still allowed or you see cigarette butts in your holiday destination flying around everywhere, please out to go ashtrays for your customers so they can dispose of their cigarette butts. And you can even have cigarette trash cans at central locations around your office, because this will prevent a lot of plastic buds, cigarette butts to be flying around the entire island. An increasing concern is raised about sunscreen, having sunscreen in the water. If it's made up of the wrong materials, a lot of chemicals and microplastics can harm the marine ecosystem. So you can promote the right sustainable sunscreen with your customers, and we get really positive response from this. Now with all the face masks going around, please offer reusable face masks. You can even put your logo on or something funny, and so if people want to keep using, so they don't find masks all over the holiday destination. On souvenirs, I'm almost coming to the end. Souvenirs, if you want to promote souvenirs to your customers, please make sure they're single-use plastic free. So don't have the stuff that they throw away after one-time use, but it needs to be something that they will use a lot longer. We also put on some other bullets there that to show, like, really make sure that they're not wrapped in plastic, individually wrapped in plastic. Make sure it's something useful so it doesn't get tossed away. Make sure that it's I think we think it's better that if it's from a locally owned business instead of buying mass manufactured souvenirs from abroad, because if you make it from locally sourced, actually the local economy will benefit, and you will benefit from this as well. Also, of course, to mention about don't make it from rare organic materials, animals or animal parts, and make it sure it's not too heavy, because everybody will have to bring it home with them, and they will not want to have a lot of weight in the plane. That doesn't make sense either. So on the communication part, we also wanted to add a bit more, because you can do a lot of these improvements, but if you don't communicate about it, people won't appreciate it as much. So please be clear in the communication about your goals and principles to convey the importance of your aims. Both do it internally with your staff and set up an internal policy. Maybe even that every employee signs, or you can do something else that's really fun to do, because we make sure that you get that fun element in as well. But also externally, so it really involve your supply chain partners. Really make sure that you can work together with lots of nice restaurants or hotels that I have the same feeling that if offer could offer you food that you can put in reusable food dispensers, and that will clean them afterwards as well. Or have shops that have the same message, and you can plot on a digital, and you can download with all these initiatives on the islands or on the locations that you're visiting that are sharing your ambitions, and that will really involve your customers much more. Communication is key, so please try to involve your customers and talk about what you do in plastic pollution at the beginning of the tour, for instance, or if people arrive at your hotel, and make your impact visible. So you can use posters or digital signage announcements to make sure that people understand what you're doing. One of the things that we are also working on is that, because you're working on your end, but obviously governments from your holiday destinations can also play a big part, because they can help to improve waste management, but really help also to raise that awareness much more. Like in Palau, they have this Palau Pledge. I'm sure you all know. If not, then have a look, because it's really inspiring. And in Phuket Island, they also have another initiative where hotels have joined forces to prevent plastic waste. So they also help each other to move forward. Like Saskia said, there's 2 initiatives globally that have started to work on initiatives on plastic waste. So the Global Tourism Plastic Initiative and the International Tourism Plastic Pledge. And I'm happy that so many of you are present here today to help make a positive change, because I think we can really steer together towards a better planet. To recap my presentation for now, this was a lot of information. We thought about, okay, so what could you do as a next step after this webinar, after you're done? I think for where it all starts is where we always typically start as well, like really identify your problem areas. You already did that in the Mentimeter, so start working on them. If this is bottles, have a look at the bottles. Is it for food? Is it for non-food? I already gave you some alternatives during the webinar. Start working on them. Ask your suppliers for dispensers. Have a look at reusable bottles. If you're stuck, really find out more, either with your suppliers or with a company that can help you. It's good to have an internal policy on litter reduction and plastic waste avoidance. So it's not just you, but everyone in your organization can get on board. And you can also send an announcement for supply chain partners about going plastic waste free. Because, yeah, like I said, I started off with a message, you cannot do it alone. So make sure you put it on paper and involve both internally and externally the people that can help you do it. This also includes distributing information material for a briefing of your staff members, but also for externally, use promotional material to communicate about it. And if you're stuck, you now know where to find us or any other organization like Travel Without Plastics or Saskia herself. There's companies that can help you do it. And I just want to encourage you to join the movement now. That was it from my side.
Thank you. There's no applause button, but that would be nice if there's one in Teams. So thank you very much. Very comprehensive, very practical. Thank you so much. We received some questions in the chat, and maybe I will ask Kai's question first, because Kai is saying that the perception of hygiene is an issue. Communication is key, as you said, but it's quite difficult to convince guests that something is safe. But Kai is also wondering what you would suggest in order to communicate the plastic-free approach during the customer journey of booking a tour. Do you have any ideas or suggestions?
So already when people are booking, I think
before arriving at the holiday destination or before arriving in the hotel. That's what I assume Kai means.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because I think if people are aware of that you have ambitions in this area and they are already aware before they go on a holiday, they can also take into account their own actions and contribute to that goal. So one example is, for instance, that you can encourage a guest to bring their own toiletries, so they don't have to use toiletries at the destination. And the same would go for other items that they don't have to use at the holiday destination, but they can just use or bring themselves. They can also really bring their own reusable bottle, for instance, to use on the plane or in the cruise line and on the holiday destination. Or they can already think about it when they have the right mindset, if they would enter a country and not just go and buy in any shop all these disposable plastics, but are really pointing towards the right direction on not using single-use plastic.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the things you can do, and also to you can already help them by planning, if you're sending emails or other communication outings, that you can already share, like for instance, a map of the island with them, where you would have partners there, and they can say, oh, you can go here, and really get them into the vibe of this is a really cool, I don't know, surf shop, and they also sell sunscreen from dispensers or the right sunscreen. And yeah, you can really make sure they get into the right mood, and you can indicate your partners, and then your partners can indicate you as well. So this will help to work both ways.
Yeah. Yeah, and just to add, because this is a discussion we had a lot as well with, especially in a project we did on Bali, and it surely helps if you book a tour operator, for example, with a Dutch tour operator, and a Dutch tour operator is really involved in the reduction of plastics, and you arrive at the destination. Let's take Bali, for example, and your destination management company, for example, picks you up at the airport, and then you get the same message, and when you arrive in the hotel, you get the same message. It takes some organization, of course, to have this message throughout the supply chain. But I really believe that definitely helps the customer to believe what is being said and to really live up to these new expectations on a holiday destination as well. I do see Tony, his hand being raised. I feel like Tony would like to respond to this. Tony, if you would like to unmute yourself. I don't hear you. I don't know if you raised your hand. Yes, there you are. Hi.
No, sorry, I touched the bottom.
Okay, there's no question from you.
Sorry.
Okay, nice to have you on the webinar, Tony. Good to hear.
Oh yeah, no. I have a question.
Oh, you do.
I'm working in Indonesia for refuel stations in hotels and airports with the American company Flow Water.
Mm-hmm. Oh, good. So you can already help, huh? You can already supply the right dispensers then.
Yeah, because when you see in the hotels like a lot of bottles in the rooms this moment, and we want talking now with the Indonesian government for the refuel stations is the connecting on tap water.
Great, that sounds good.
This Flow Water. Flow Water is from USA.
All
you can
right.
see. Yes.
Thank you so much, Tony.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tony, for having a good solution for the hotels. Excellent. Another question is from Vera. If you're working together with Travelife as well, Willemijn.
Yes, we have been in contact with Nout from Travelife, and we will also be seeing how we could share the toolkit for tour operators with more tour operators in the future. So collecting the best practices, we've asked them to give feedback on our toolkit, so we can already include tips and the other way around, give it back.
Thank you. And Erik is asking the question if you have information about the satisfaction of guests about no plastic in a bathroom. Because many guests don't trust glass or other options. So do you have did you receive any feedback on the satisfaction of guests?
Not specifically about no plastic in the bathroom. We do have numbers from research showing that if you have, let me see if I can find it that quickly. I think that TUI did the analysis. It shows that hotels that focus outperform without. So they have 10% lower CO2, but also they have a lot less, but they have a higher customer satisfaction scores because they're really about, how do you say that, providing something positive and making sure that it's sustainable in the long term. So I think, again, communication is key. If you explain why and that it's perfectly safe, customers are really willing to go to that end and embrace it even.
Great. And then Philippos has a question. Maybe you came across that, but
from Greece.
What do you say?
From Greece.
I can't see, but maybe he is.
Years ago.
Oh, great. What about giving incentives to guests who bring their own shampoos? Did you come across any of the hotels you've been working with?
Yes, some of them encourage this to do this. There's a bit of debate on this because then people obviously bring the shampoo bottles on the plane, and that also has a bit more weight, and then that causes more use of kerosene. So there's a bit debate on that. But yeah, if you have limited options within your hotel to have dispensers, I think encouraging your guests to bring your own shampoo bottles is a good option.
Yeah, and Philippus is just adding that he's from the Cyprus Sustainable Tourism Initiative.
Yes, so 5 years ago.
So,
Good to have you here.
so you met and then you meet again in this webinar. Yeah. Excellent. Let's see, because there's more questions. And there's one from Ben Breekveld. What is your stance on offering plastic alternatives for mono-packaged food and personal protective equipment, such as pairs of gloves and masks? Are there any that are safe enough?
Okay, I think the first question you ask yourself is it really necessary to use it single use, or could you do something that is yours and that you could wash, for instance? If it's mono, it depends on if it's still plastic. And if it's in a holiday destination where there's no waste management whatsoever, it doesn't really matter if it's a mono or a multi-material package, because it's usually ending up in the garbage belt anyway. Of course, we're trying to optimize this. Also, the Alliance and the others are trying to optimize it. So hopefully that will be changing in the future. But I think really have a critical look if you need disposables, because there is no away. Disposable means you throw it away, but there is no away. So really think through how you can maybe sanitize them, clean them, or make them reusable in some way.
Yeah, and if I may add to that, what I remember from a webinar we did earlier with Travel Without Plastics in July, is that gloves are actually are actually not really helping, because people use gloves more often than once. You should actually only use them once, and people think because the glove is safe, they use them more often. But using a glove is actually worse than just using your own hands and wash them more often. So gloves can really have a counter-effective effect if it comes to counterproductive effect if it comes to spreading the virus. So this also understanding, I can understand that. Just take a hotel as an example. It's really there's so much information out there, and you're so busy. You try to do the good thing, but it's really worth investing the time to see what is actually also really helping not spreading the virus, instead of thinking that this probably would help stopping to spread the virus. So when using these gloves, there's some insights that you think like, oh yeah, if you think a little bit longer about it, it really makes sense that it's not being used in a proper way, and it's even counterproductive. So it might be good to have a thought about that as well. And looking at the time, I'm going to the last question, and I think we covered most of it. The last question is Ying's question. Do you know about certain sustainable brands that you would recommend to work for sustainable solutions that are not plastics? Do you have good alternative brands?
Yes, there's quite some brands, but it would depend on what kind of application. So I don't know if you're talking about dispensing systems, or are you talking about this? So that's really hard to answer.
Reusable bottles.
Yeah. So there's a couple of good alternatives out there, like for instance straws. If you really if you need a straw, first, if you need a straw, is it really liquid? So could it be a straw, for instance, like a natural material? There's a couple of good examples out there, but the same would go for reusable bottles. Please pick the right material that is that you could at the end of life process in that context, and then have a look at the good brand. And there's quite some examples out there, and even comparing tools. And if you're stuck, just reach out to us, and that's okay. We can help.
Yep. And I will also share we will all send you an email later on with some main takeaways of this webinar. And we also recorded the webinar, and I will also share a link with you. We've named Travel Without Plastics before in this webinar. We did a webinar with them in July, and I know they are working on a platform in which they really want to make the connection between sustainable suppliers and the hotel. There's a lot of confusion out there. Let's take biodegradable. Is the biodegradable a good alternative? Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. So there's a lot of confusion there, and they're working on this platform to help you with finding the right suppliers in sustainable alternatives. Well, it's 3 minutes to 3, at least here in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam. We're going towards the end. Willemijn, I don't know if you can share the last 2 slides. Not all too important if we don't, but I would like to thank you once again for all your attention. And I hope we helped you with this webinar. As I said, we will be sharing this webinar. So if you found it interesting, please feel free to also share it with your colleagues of others that might be interested. As Willemijn said, and I really feel that as well, is collaboration is key. You can't do it alone. It's a very difficult topic, especially in these times. So please, join the Global Tourism Plastics Initiative. Join us. Call Willemijn. We don't care. I feel like working quite intensively in tourism and plastics. We all know each other, which is good. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel, but we mainly have to do it together. So thanks again very much for your time. Thanks a lot, Willemijn, for your time and for your presentation. It was very good to have you here. If we will also, in the mail we sent you, we will also ask if you are interested in receiving one of the toolkits Willemijn has been talking about. So more about that in the mail we will be sending you. We will be working on organizing a next webinar. Unfortunately, it's all these webinars because, well, the situation, if it comes to the corona crisis, is not getting any better. So physical events, we have to wait with that, I guess. So, but hopefully we can inspire you in the next webinar. Thank you so much. Have a great afternoon. For us, afternoon, a nice evening or a good morning, wherever you are. And I wish you all the best in these difficult times. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.